In late September of 2010, Alberto Contador announced that he had been informed that one of his urine samples at the 2010 Tour de France came back positive. Contador denied any accusations and simply said he'd eaten contaminated beef. The UCI threatened Contador with a 1-year ban, and the battle between him and the UCI was ongoing until 2012, where instead of a ban, Contador got all his titles stripped between 2010 and early 2012. This made Schleck the official winner of the 2010 Tour de France. However, he rejected the title, citing it's a bullshit way to win. In the 2011 Tour, Contador didn't perform like expected. He'd won the Giro that year, but his performance at the Tour was lackluster, finishing in 5th place far away from the leaders. He even got dropped on his favourite terrain, the steep mountains.
Contador, 3:45, and there is confirmation of Alberto Contador. The champion of the Tour de France the past 2 years is yo-yoing on his favourite playground, and I think that's the end of the Tour de France for him as a winner this year.
This led many to believe that Contador was racing clean in 2011 to prove to himself and all the doubters wrong that he could win clean after his case with the UCI. A similar strategy many believe that Armstrong used in his comeback year of 2009. 2012, he still wasn't in top shape. It felt like the UCI stripping his titles took a big toll on him. He skipped the Tour and went on to race the Vuelta a Espana. With his main rivals not racing, he managed to win his first Grand Tour since the now infamous 2011 Giro win. In 2013, Contador was back in full strength. According to himself, he wanted to race the Tour de France again. He now rode for Team Saxo Tinkoff, where he had a full team dedicated to help him win the Tour de France. However, Contador lost time on stage 7, and it truly felt like his era of dominating Grand Tours was over. He got dropped by riders he beat years prior, his riding style was different.
The man who was expected to be the biggest threat to Chris Froome was struggling to hold his teammate Roman Kreuziger's wheel. Grimacing with the effort it took to edge out Quintana on the line, he immediately looked over his shoulder to check the extent of his losses.
In years before, he'd been fluent on the bike, barely moving his upper body and putting all the power down on the road. But now, he was bobbing all over the place and it wasn't fluent at all. The trend continued throughout the Tour, and his best place was second in the time trial on stage 17. When the Tour was over, Contador finished 4th, over 6 minutes behind Chris Froome. It felt like the end of Contador as a top threat in Grand Tours, but Contador himself had other plans. 2014 felt different for Contador. He all of a sudden won some early spring races.
Raced up the hill, raced down the hill, raced in the valley, and powers up this final wall to take a wonderful success. His second in succession, Alberto Contador, is the winner of stage 5 of Tirreno Adriatico.
And before the Criterium du Dauphiné, he was actually a favourite. It was a massive upswing of form not many would have predicted. The battle was set, Chris Froome versus Alberto Contador in the Dauphiné, the final warm-up race for the Tour. Stage 1 was a short prologue. Froome managed to win with a few seconds. Stage 2 was a big mountain finish, and with a few kilometers to go, Froome made an incredibly long attack, but Contador stayed with him. They kept trading attacks, but in the last few hundred meters, Contador was dropped and Froome won. However, it was way closer than last year, and the hope for an epic Tour de France battle was truly on the horizon now. Froome even crashed and lost form in the Dauphiné, so Contador came out on top to finish second in the general classification after American racer Andrew Talansky. The 2014 Tour de France was supposed to be Froome versus Contador, one upcoming GC rider and one who'd been there all those years prior. New versus old, high cadence washing machine versus stand-up dancing on the bike. Unfortunately, both riders crashed out of the Tour and there was never a big battle between them. Instead, both riders switched focus to the Vuelta a Espana. The 2014 Vuelta saw Contador as a stronger overall rider. It was a close fight, but Contador managed to beat Froome up pretty much every single mountain. He won 2 stages and dropped Froome in the process. The cycling community were happy and upset at the same time. They got the GC battle they wanted, but in the wrong Grand Tour. Contador was happy. He'd now proven himself that he was without a question back in the top flight of general classification riders.
And here he is. He's our champion. Alberto Contador takes that coveted red jersey. And do you know what? I've never seen him happier.
For 2015, Contador had one goal in mind: to win the Giro and the Tour in the same year. He'd attempted this 4 years prior in 2011, but only managed to win the Giro d'Italia, failing in the Tour de France. But for 2015, Contador felt more confident and ready. He had the potential to win all 3 Grand Tours in a row, a feat never accomplished. The Giro started well. His team finished second in the team time trial, placing Contador in a good position.
Tinkoff Saxo are not going to get there, but they're going to produce an amazing performance for a team that we expected to be merely solid. They have been exceptional.
Stage 5 was the first real test, and with 4.5 kilometers to go, Contador placed one of his trademark attacks. The only 2 riders who were able to follow were Fabio Aru and Richie Porte. They rode together to the finish line after a flurry of attacks, and by doing so, Contador got the Maglia Rosa.
Contador goes into the leader's jersey. Job well done for him.
On stage 8, with about a kilometer to go, Fabio Aru attacked Contador, but they stayed close to each other until the finish.
In the meantime, in the sprint, it's Aru who's just going to miss out behind. Contador holds on. A mighty performance on a day of hell for him.
However, Aru's teammate Mikel Landa had attacked early on the climb, dropping both riders as they were more concerned with each other. This meant Landa took some time back on both Aru and Contador. 2 riders on the same team, if they worked together, could be dangerous to Contador. However, that's a big if when Astana is involved. The Giro raged on, and never a dull moment in the racing. Stage 9 saw Aru attack again, but Contador was right on him.
Between them, they may well just be given an alternate second, and I think Aru is going to find a couple of seconds here. Let's have a look. He hits the line now.
The next day, it was Contador who proactively attacked Aru in the rain. Maybe he sensed some weakness. Yes, he did, because on stage 12, Aru had nothing left in the legs on the steep finish at the end. Contador came second to Gilbert, while Aru only went backwards. However, this was a short-lived win for Contador, as the following day he was caught up in an awkward pileup. While he lost time and the pink jersey, he felt okay. In true spirit of the chaotic Giro, Contador absolutely demolished Aru in the time trial.
Contador, absolutely brilliant. That is an amazing performance by him. He's certainly going to get on the day's podium. Lucian Sanchez's time is there as well. 50 metres to go. Contador has announced himself big time. It's ringing out down the valleys.
Some may have forgotten that Contador has been Spanish time trial champion in the past, and initially made his mark with his time trialing ability. With this win, it seemed like the pink jersey was in the back for Contador. Astana wasn't having that though. They continued to put pressure on Contador, a strong team with several climbers who could challenge for the GC in their own right, set the pace. Contador kept up for now, but was his luck about to run out?
Único que es un puerto que no tiene mucha pendiente, llevar a la gente a rueda, la gente a rueda va muy cómoda y era complicado el controlar la etapa y aparte guardar fuerza para ganarla, ¿no? Era complicado. Entonces, bueno, he querido jugar y pensar sobre todo en la general.
On what is perhaps the greatest Giro stage of all time, Contador had a flat tire prior to the Montirolo climb.
Alberto Contador, a couple of people just waiting up behind. What sort of problems happened here?
Well, it was certainly a think of rather there. Looked like he was taking his wheel out. Maybe Contador had a problem.
He had to stop and get a tire from his teammate Ivan Basso. Normally racing would halt when the leader of the race is in difficulties. That wasn't the case. Astana in the front of the peloton was full steam ahead. The race was on.
51 seconds, Contador distance before the start of it.
Contador showed some of the best descending and climbing we've ever seen.
You know, Contador just going through riders, it's amazing. These riders, you know, are in the group, getting a free ride to the bottom of the climb, and Contador just rides through them, and he's looking impressive at the moment.
This all surprised a struggling Aru.
And here he's about to break Fabio Aru's heart. Contador back onto the wheel of Fabio Aru. It's taken him a while. He's had to work hard on the flat. He's used all his team, and you just got the sense when Kruijswijk attacked at the front and just rode away that Landa's being held back here, Sean.
Who showed this face on camera, a meme that lives on forever.
Contador Contador's attacked. Contador attacks. What does Landa do? Does he stay with Aru? Does he chase him down himself? Alberto Contador riding to victory in the Giro d'Italia right here, right now.
Mikel Landa went on to win the stage, but Contador won all the hearts. Something happened between stage 17 and 19. A struggling Aru was no more. He was flying. He won stage 19 and showed massive emotion as he crossed the line.
Take it today! Oh, look at this moment! Look what it means to him, and listen what it means to the crowd!
It all came down to the final day, which featured a gravel climb to the finish. Astana pulled out all the tricks. Both Landa and Aru in tandem put the screws into Contador, and it worked. Aru won consecutive stages and clawed more time back, but a calm and collected Contador had time to zip up his jersey and celebrate to the cameras as he crossed the line, a whole 2 minutes behind Aru. A magnificent win for Contador, and more importantly, he now held both the Giro d'Italia and Vuelta a Espana wins. He only needed the Tour de France. While we'd love for this next part to be the epic conclusion we're all craving, Contador didn't win the Tour de France that year. He finished 5th and was rather incognito doing so. He finished almost 10 minutes down on eventual winner Chris Froome. The dream for the Triple Crown was over, and so was his season. The majority of 2016 and 17 isn't that interesting. He did have some great results in that time span, but the one that'll stick with many is him going out on a high, winning on the Angliru in the Vuelta a Espana.
Es lo mejor que le ha podido pasar hoy para llevarse esta victoria.
Última curva, 75 metros, pide que la gente aplauda, háganlo ustedes desde su casa. ¡Bravo, Alberto!
These days, Contador is a commentator on Eurosport and owner/manager of Eolo Kometa, with best friend and ex-teammate Ivan Basso. You would have most recently seen his excitement when they won a stage in the Giro d'Italia this year. Contador is a rider you either love or hate. We grew up watching him on television, and while he was caught doping, it's hard to deny the excitement his dancing on the bike has brought to the sport.